All right, good evening. Today we're going to talk a little bit about volume training, why you should be doing it, and some of the misconceptions that surround um, a typical like 5x5 program. Um, I work with a lot of novice and intermediate lifters. One of the things that we tend to deal with a lot is this concept that, okay, you can abide by this program. Most common one is 5x5, right? So you have 5 sets, 5 reps for whatever exercise you're doing, typically a lot of barbell compound lifts. Um, and this kind of perpetuates in the gym. A lot of like intermediates ended up being lifetime intermediates because the 5x5 is all they've known. And so they stick with that program and then just adjust it for whatever exercise that they're doing. And maybe they'll try to kind of increase a little progressive overload by either slightly increasing the number of reps or changing up the sets. But I think what's been lost in this obsession with programming, get the right program for you and your diet and all this stuff, is just the attitude kind of showing up in the gym. And it's what separates a lifetime intermediate from a more advanced lifter, and then the more advanced lifters from the elite lifters. There's nothing wrong with a 5x5. Don't get me wrong. For beginners, especially, I think it's a really important introduction to the gym, for getting familiar with exercises, for feeling what exactly progressive overload looks like, and then adjusting that over time to kind of get used to more advanced exercises. But the thing about the beginner stage, right, is that it doesn't take long to hit intermediate. Maybe just a couple months of consistent showing up in the gym day after day, week after week, putting in the hours needed to actually make some sort of substantial gain. It's just not that hard. And because the 5x5 has worked well for a beginner, right? And this is where I often meet people where they are, is that this beginner stage coming into intermediate, they've been so acclimated to the 5x5 that they're like, okay, I've plateaued here, and I have absolutely no idea how to increase the weight. I don't understand why this thing that's been working for me before is not working now. But the important thing to understand is that there is a mentality separation between the intermediate and the advanced, and even some beginners and intermediate lifters. It's easy to change a program for someone who's going from beginner to intermediate once they kind of max out the 5x5. But what starts to change once you start making that adjustment for a lot of beginners is the consistency with which they show up to the gym. So you take that 5x5 and say, hey, okay, so we'll start sticking some more volume into this training. You're going to be doing heavier weights at lots more reps and lots more sets. And it's like, okay, I know this will break through my plateau, and some go in and they do it. And it's not too bad. It doesn't take too much mental strength to actually break through those barriers, because now you're going with a very typical progressive overload structure, right? Literally just increasing the weights, the sets, and the reps that you're doing is enough to break through most plateaus when you're going from beginner to intermediate. And that's not too hard to do, even though that does sometimes weed out, who's willing to stick with this in the long term. And that's been my experience. It seems to be about a 60-40 split between the beginners who are entering intermediate and are willing to stick with it, and then 40% who decide, this is not for them. They'd rather kind of go into the gym and then ditz around with their typical 5x5 because it's easy. They feel like they get a pump, then they leave. And then they end up in this calorie surplus that just doesn't serve them, ends up being body fat, or they enter a deficit and they just show up to the gym undercarbed and absolutely not ready for any sort of protein synthesis whatsoever. And so there is a bit of a split there, but even a 60-40 is doable. It's when the intermediate coming into the elite or the advanced level, it's when they require help that you see the biggest division between people who are willing to push the boundaries from what they've known. Because even the intermediate structures, are not that difficult, as I said before. You just take a typical 5x5 and you adjust it. Okay, so you take one exercise, instead of doing 5 sets, try 10 sets, maybe 10 sets of 3 reps, 10 sets of 4 reps. It's a lot more volume. So it's a bit of heavier weight. But even there, an intermediate lifter can handle that, especially if it's just a couple different exercises. The mentality split, though, from an intermediate to advanced is pretty major, because the entire program really, I think, needs to change. It's been my experience, not just for myself, but also for a lot of clients, that if you're not training with volume, and I mean intense volume, uh, hundreds of reps, you're not going to see the plateau breaking that you used to see with your beginner to intermediate stage, because the body requires so much new stimulus. And this is what I'm talking about when I mention the mindset change. It's like the difference between running 5 miles and 20 miles. One is just harder than the other. Regardless of the pace that you run the 20 miles at, if you want to be consistent and you want to run the whole thing, it's going to be trickier than if you were to run 5 miles at whatever pace you choose. It's just more work. It's more volume. Your body has to change. It has to adapt. And the same goes for weight training, right? If you want to train heavier, if you want to get better, if you want to look better, which is something that I personally don't care about, but I do care about performance. I do care about being strong. I care about that image, right? Personally, it's something that you have to do, is get to that 20-mile mentality. It's like, okay, I'm willing to train with this much more volume. I'm willing to train with this many more sets, this many more reps. And that's a switch. And that's where you end up with more of a 30-70 split. 30% of people in this intermediate stage are willing to sell out for an advanced level. And then 70% say, okay, you know what? This is not for me. I'm going to be a lifetime intermediate, and then settle at this plan that helped me break plateaus from a basic to intermediate stage. You know, it's a switch. And even more so from the advanced to elite lifters, because you can be a lifetime advanced as well and not ever make it to the elite stage, for whatever you're doing. That mindset switch is something that I think a lot of people don't obsess about. And obsession is key. Obsession is the most important factor in your training that you can possibly have. And so this video, we've gone over the 5x5 and then intermediate, lifetime intermediate, what it takes to be an advanced lifter. We've gone all over that, and it's basic common sense. But the thing that's often not discussed is the mindset that you have to have going into the gym. And this is the most important thing, wherever you are, calisthenics, at home, in the gym, wherever. You have to choose that you would rather die. You would actually rather die than fail a set, than fail a rep. That you would own the weight rather than it own you. And a lot of people don't really understand that. And I think it's something that an elite lifter or an advanced lifter has to tell him or herself. When you go to the gym, you have to be willing to sell out, literally wage war. You go there to fight. And it's a fight that looks almost psychotic to the people that don't really understand what's going on. You're sweating, veins are popping out of your neck, veins are popping on the sides of your forehead, and people look at you and they're confused. A lot of people at Inhuman have told me, I just look there and I look around and I don't see other people looking like me. It's because you're dealing with intermediate lifters, right? People who've settled for what they know. But you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and developing this mindset that you refuse to quit. Because quitting is death. That's literally the mindset. You might have a program that says, okay, I'm going to do 10 sets of 100 reps. Well, that's not a legitimate program. Oh, that's just overtraining. And people can tell you whatever they want. All the best personal trainers in the world can tell you what they want. Personal trainers are personal trainers because they get paid to make people feel comfortable. Oh, we'll make progress. And they do, and they make these great friendships with their clients. But the clients end up just being that. They're not really advanced. They're not really elite. And they can be elite lifters. They could be motivated by external factors like their personal trainers, but they haven't developed the mental strength to really work through war themselves. And that's really the mindset that separates you from other people in the gym. If you want to be an advanced lifter, if you want to be elite, you have to develop the mindset that goes beyond the 5x5. You have to be willing to sell out, to show up to the gym, give everything you have, to die on the bench if it has to die in the squat rack, to give it everything you have and then pass out, to go on a 20-mile ruck and be willing to die. If it means that, your heart explodes, you have to get to that point. Look at 40-mile rock in the eye and say, okay, that's what's on the table. I'm going to do this. Okay. I might not have trained for that, but up here, I know it's just a matter of time. I'm going to get it. Never fail a lift, never fail a ruck, never fail a run, because you have to develop that mindset that doesn't let you quit. That doesn't mean you won't encounter failure as an advanced or elite lifter or whatever you are. You will, but you don't interpret it as failure. You interpret it as a stepping stone. You look it in the eye and say, okay, that's not going to happen again. I'm going to win this next time. I'm going to get it. And that's what separates you. A program is not meant to be a bunch of numbers cobbled together to be some magic formula for you. We overthink the program. A program is a collection of hardships that exist to push you to your very limit, your absolute breaking point. And you show up with that program and you give it everything you have, even if you die. And then you go and you eat like mad, and then sleep, wake up, and you do it all over again. That's what a program is. And that's how you go for it. That's how you attack it, by looking it in the eye and refusing to quit. This isn't about numbers. You can put whatever mess you want on there. It's not going to change. What does matter is whether or not you pass out, how much you leave on the line. And if you sell yourself short, that's on you. If you want to succeed, you have to go to and die and come back to life and then go do it all over again. Give it everything you have. Leave yourself completely exhausted, like a shell. That's the mindset. It's war. You wage war, and then you come back, do it again every day. It's not numbers. It's this. If you can get that, you're ahead of every lifter in the world. You're ahead of every rucker, every runner. It doesn't matter where you are. If you develop this, it's only a matter of time until you get to where they are. Millions of dollars in personal training and diet optimization and other junk that they could afford, and that's helped them get to where they are. And then there's you with this, and you understand what it takes to sell out, and that it's just a matter of time until you get to that point. That's what a program looks like. Doesn't matter what the numbers are. It does matter if you're giving it everything you have, and if you leave that gym a shell instead of the person you used to be. That's it.